most fun conference I've ever been to. So a little bit about FinCon. I found out about FinCon back in early 2023, and I think the advertisement. I've seen them on Instagram, if I'm not mistaken. And when I first saw it, it was a conference that seemed to be like personal finance content creators all coming together from whether they're bloggers, podcasters, influencers, you name it. People that talk about credit cards, points and miles, personal finance, investing. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Walk to Wealth podcast. If you're tuning in on YouTube or any of the podcast directories, make sure to do yourself one teeny tiny little favor and make sure to give us a follow, because I don't want you to miss out on any of the amazing episodes I got coming out this year. Without further ado, let's get right into this one. If you've been keeping up with the series, you know that I've been talking about conferences and all the conferences I've been to. I've been to over, maybe 20 or close to 20 conferences in the past 3 years. Spent well over $15,000 to $20,000 going to conferences between, the actual ticket prices, travel, et cetera, et cetera. So I know a thing or two about conferences, right? I've gone to a lot of them. And so right now we're going to be talking about FinCon. Now, this is what I call the most fun conference I've ever been to. So a little bit about FinCon. I found out about FinCon back in early 2023, and I think the advertisement. I've seen them on Instagram, if I'm not mistaken. And when I first saw it, it was a conference that seemed to be like personal finance content creators all coming together from whether they're bloggers, podcasters, YouTubers, influencers, you name it. People that talk about credit cards, points and miles, personal finance, investing, real estate, wealth building, financial tax strategies, tax attorneys, whatever you name. Like, it was everyone and that just talks about money, pretty much, all at one conference. And back in for my 100th episode podcast, I did an in-person event, and at that event I did a raffle. And part of the raffle was I was raffling off tickets to go with me to FinCon. And so I had used, if I'm not mistaken, my scholarship money to pay for my FinCon tickets. And I ended up getting a VIP pass. And my boy Rob ended up winning the raffle somehow, which is like, it seems like it was rigged because I actually know Rob personally. But he won twice. We did we spun the wheel 2 times, and he won both times somehow. And so Rob ended up winning the raffle. And I'm going in there. I told him a little bit about the conference, and he was interested because he was planning to start his podcast at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And so I already had my podcast. Bob was already about to launch his podcast. So by the time we went, his podcast already up and going. And so we ended up getting our creator pass, and they had a lot of like meetups and masterminds that I didn't participate. I could have taken more advantage of my ticket, but I didn't. And so that's on me. And this conference is going to be in New Orleans. So this is my first time in New Orleans. I heard a thing or two about New Orleans, mainly all good stuff, honestly. And we ended up going to New Orleans. Me and Rob, I think we flew at separate flights. I ended up getting there early. And then I check in, asked for my room upgrade, got our room upgrade, and we were on the 4th floor, which is already like super high. And guess what? Your boy is already a platinum member. You guys know that I'm big into the points and miles. So I'm a platinum member. And man, the lounge over there was really, really nice. This is like the first hotel I've been to, or one of the first hotels I've been to, like, that actually had like lounge status. It was on the 42nd floor, and like it was beautiful. And in there, we got free breakfast. There were snacks and hors d'oeuvres that were served in the evening time, if in case you were hungry. But like the view, you could literally see over all of New Orleans. It was easily one of the tallest buildings in all of New Orleans, towering over everything. You could see the water. It was gorgeous. And best believe I was in the lounge every single morning and every single evening to get myself my food. And then Rob, of course, because he's rooming with me, got access to the lounge as well. So Rob was definitely having a good time. And we get to the conference. One of the things, I think it was a couple thousand people at the conference, but I loved how intimate they made it feel. There was a lot of opportunity for networking. Honestly, it seemed as if there was more networking than there was actual like speaking and breakouts. Everything was like really manufactured to put you in positions and places for you to connect with people that you didn't know. And I love that personally, because going to a conference where you don't know anyone except for the person you're going with. And I'm the type of person, when you go to a conference, even if we're going together, like we don't have to be smothering each other. Like you go out, do your thing. I'm gonna go do my thing, and if we are doing the same breakout or session or whatever, then cool. We'll sit next to each other and whatever. But for me, and try not to be like that person that's like overly clingy or everything, and like have to be with their partners at all time. Like I go and do my own thing. I'm like a little lone wolf, and so I got to meet a lot of amazing people. The black community at FinCon really runs deep, like super deep. And I remember connecting with some people, and somehow, some way, shape, or form, I ended up making it into their group chat, and that was really dope. Because while I was there, in terms of speakers, overall, I didn't get much value in terms of speakers overall. The first panel I went to was with a guy who I had on a podcast. Shout out to Hassan. He was on the podcast, on the panel, and his panel was fire. I got a lot of notes, a lot of gems from their group, and I was writing down the whole time. But aside from that, the speakers, they gave a lot of surface level information. None of them really got too deep into anything, which was annoying. But what can I say, right? They have about 45 minutes. It's not going to teach something game changing, but at least like give me a concept or a strategy or two to that I can walk away with, that I can go home and implement in my business. Yes, I know you have your story and whatever, but give me some tangibles. And aside from that, that's it. There's a lot of networking opportunities. I wanted to go back again this year in 2024, but Kajabi Hero Live is going to be hosted around the same time, so I have to pick one or the other. And of course, I'm not going to pick. I'm not going to pick Kajabi. That was my best conference I went to, hands down. But at FinCon, as I said, all the networking opportunities, all the little happy hours that they had, and I remember going out. I normally don't go out when I go to conferences, but I remember one day me and Rob went out and we were playing Jenga until like almost midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning on one night with a whole bunch of strangers just having a good old time. Ended up going back to the room. And then on one of the last days, the FinCon, the black community, they call it the cookout. That's the group name, the cookout, whatever. Like the cookout community, whatever. They had a networking event, and I remember going with them. Went to the networking event. Honestly, I talked to a few people, none of which that I kept in touch with. But then from there was one guy I was talking to, and then next we went from one function, and then all of a sudden we ended up going to some like club, and like we were just dancing in the club to like almost maybe like 2 o'clock in the morning. Like we were lit. That was such a fun conference. We were going there. I remember, and I met. Not only did I meet Hassan, but shout out to Shani. Shani was also someone that I met on the at FinCon, who I had on a podcast before. Me, Shani, and two other folks. One lady, one guy, older guy that's in real estate investing. We all got to eat breakfast together at some. It was like some black Chinese spot, or if I'm not mistaken, but it was really dope. And I ended up having there's this one. I had grits and crawfish. I was really immersed in the culture over there. I felt like out of all the conferences, like sometimes you just be eating in a hotel, but FinCon was definitely from a purely networking basis. Like they did a 10 out of 10 job with the networking. That was such a dope event. I met so many people that I just aligned with. I also had Maya Corbett. Maya, shout out to Maya. She's Teach Kids Money. I had her on the podcast. I had Tiger White on the podcast. I met a lot of dope people from FinCon that I connected and collab with after FinCon. As I said, I was doing a lot of networking. They set it up where you can set like appointments for people, and like people are really active in the app for the conference. And as I said, that was probably easily the best conference I went to in terms of fun and networking perspective. 10 out of 10, broke my scale. In terms of like a value perspective that I can go and implement in my business, nothing has come close to Kajabi Hero Live. That was easily the best conference I ever went to so far. But it was really fun. And so that was my trip to FinCon. Ideal world, I would be going to KHL and FinCon again this year. I also applied to speak at FinCon, but I didn't get approved. But Me and Rob had a blast while we were out there. Made a lot of dope connections. At least I know I did. Made a lot of dope connections I collaborated with, and I definitely would have gone back. And next year in 2025, assuming KHL and FinCon don't host an event on the same day, I would most likely be going back to both because, as I said, I had a great time. I know the guy who started the FinCon like kind of movement or conference movement, and he was also a really cool guy. I got to meet with him. We ended up hosting like a little happy hour during lunchtime one of the days that we were out there, and so I got to eat and connect with him. And so, as I said, overall, really cool event. Super glad I went. And the next event I want to be talking to you about. I skipped a couple conferences that weren't too important. I'm just kind of documenting the ones that honestly that are worth mentioning. The next one I'm gonna be talking about my trip to GrowthCon, and then after that, I'm gonna finish off with a kind of like episode where I'm talking about is it worth going to conferences, and that's gonna be more like an informational type episode. The last one, the more so just me documenting the conference that I've been to, and I probably should have been to the conferences. One of the things that I'm gonna start doing now is after I go to a conference, immediately after record a podcast episode, just so I could, as I said, document the journey, document the walk to wealth. But in the next one, we're talking about my trip to GrowthCon, and then from there in June. By the time this is out, I'll probably be at Austin for Quantum Leap 2024. And so I may just make another episode about that. That's the conference that after I went, I got a $10,000 scholarship. I got to meet a billionaire, whatever, whatever. And so I'll probably be doing another episode of that. As of right now, it's Quantum Leap 2024 and then Kajabi Hero Live. And those are the only two conferences that I got on the calendar for the rest of 2024, unless something pops up. But for now, that's pretty much it. So I'll see you in the next episode where I'll be covering GrowthCon, the second to last episode in this conference series.